ABC General Hospital spoilers reveal that what should have been a simple night for Emma and Gio begins with the fragile kind of hope that only exists in Port Charles when two young people still believe they can carve out one quiet corner of peace while the rest of the city is collapsing under old sins. There is something almost painfully tender in the way Emma enters that evening wanting normalcy, not because her life has ever truly been normal, but because she is exhausted by fear dressed up as resilience. She has spent too many days carrying the invisible weight of Anna's disappearance, too many nights replaying every warning sign she might have missed, too many hours trying to convince herself that distance can still feel like safety if she controls her thoughts hard enough. Gio sees that strain even when Emma tries to hide it behind composure, and that is what makes the disaster of the evening feel so cruel. He does not go into the night wanting romance for its own sake. He goes into it wanting to give her one memory untouched by panic. He wants music, warmth, and laughter to do what they rarely do in Port Charles, which is hold back the dark. But the darkness is already in the room before either of them realize it, because this city never lets innocence arrive before danger gets there first. The date begins with all the awkward sweetness that has made Emma and Gio feel different from the people around them. Their connection has never depended on grand declarations. It lives in the patience between them, in the way Emma has learned to read the hesitation behind Gio's smiles, and in the way Gio understands that Emma's strength is not the absence of fear, but the discipline of carrying it quietly. Yet on this night, that quiet begins to crack. Gio is distracted from the start, not because he cares less, but because he has already been brushed too closely by the growing war spreading through Port Charles. Sidwell's crimes have poisoned the atmosphere of the city so thoroughly that even people who do not belong to the battlefield feel the tremors beneath their feet. Cullum's shadow still hangs over too many conversations, too many investigations, too many half-finished truths, and Gio is young enough to believe he can step around the danger without being claimed by it, but old enough to know that belief may already be a lie. He walks into the evening carrying the strain of secrets he has not fully named, and Emma, already haunted by Anna, senses the fracture in him before the night is half over. What makes the date truly tragic is not a single catastrophe, but the way small disturbances pile on top of each other until the entire evening feels cursed. A call comes at the wrong moment, a rumor slips into the air, a face appears where it should not. Gio loses focus in a way that embarrasses him, because he has wanted so badly to be steady for Emma. She notices his hands shake when he thinks she is not looking. She hears him answer a question too quickly, then not at all. She sees the guilt rising in him long before he offers any explanation, and the look in his eyes tells her that this is not ordinary nerves. Something is changing around them. Something is closing in. The date stops feeling like a date and starts feeling like a waiting room before impact. Emma has lived enough of her life around people like Anna, Robin, and Patrick to recognize the exact moment when personal happiness becomes collateral damage in a larger crisis. The realization hits her with a cold force she cannot disguise. For one fleeting instant, she is not a young woman out with someone who cares about her. She is Anna's granddaughter again, Robin's daughter again, a Scorpio at the edge of another family storm, bracing for the blow before the news even arrives. That is where the emotional core of the disaster truly lives. It is not that Emma is disappointed. It is that the night confirms her deepest fear, the one she has been trying not to say aloud since Anna's situation unraveled. No matter how badly she wants a life that belongs to her, she may already be marked by the same cycle that has consumed generations of her family. Love is never just love. A quiet evening is never just a quiet evening. Every warm moment risks turning into the prelude to grief. Emma feels that truth moving through her like ice. Anna's absence has already reopened the oldest wound in her, the childhood knowledge that the people she loves can disappear into danger with no warning and return altered, broken, or not at all. Robin's looming return to Port Charles only intensifies that dread. Because Robin is not just Emma's mother. Robin is the embodiment of everything Emma has inherited without choosing: intelligence sharpened by trauma, devotion shaped by loss, and a life forever interrupted by crises larger than the heart can bear. The possibility of Robin and Anna returning to Port Charles at the same time should feel like comfort, like family closing ranks, but instead it threatens to expose every emotional crack Emma has been struggling to conceal. Their return means answers, and in Port Charles, answers rarely heal anything. They expose, they accuse, they drag buried fear into the light. As the evening spirals, Gio becomes trapped in a different kind of torment. He is humiliated by the failure of the night because he knows Emma deserves softness, and instead keeps receiving chaos. But beneath that embarrassment is something darker. He is starting to understand that being close to Emma may mean being drawn into a conflict far more dangerous than one ruined date. The crimes of Sidwell and Cullum are not abstract anymore. They are contaminating private lives, seeping into ordinary routines, rearranging loyalties, and forcing everyone to decide how much danger they are willing to stand near. Gio has been trying to move through this city with heart instead of armor, but the city punishes that kind of openness. He feels it now in the pressure building around him, in the sense that one wrong move could put Emma at risk. One badly timed decision could drag her deeper into a story already stained by obsession, revenge, and manipulation. That knowledge destroys him because the last thing he wants is to become another source of pain in Emma's life. He would rather disappoint her than endanger her, but Port Charles does not always allow those two outcomes to remain separate. Emma, meanwhile, is battling a war inside herself that is more devastating than anything visible on the surface. She wants to be angry at the night, angry at the interruption, angry at the way fear has once again stolen something simple from her. But she cannot stay in that anger because she sees too clearly what Gio is becoming under the pressure. He is not careless. He is drowning. That recognition shifts the emotional tone of everything between them. Instead of resentment, Emma feels the terrible tenderness of someone who understands pain when she sees it, even when it is disguised as awkwardness or apology. And that tenderness is dangerous in its own way, because it binds her to him more tightly just as the world around them is becoming more unstable. She looks at Gio and sees not a failed date, but a person standing at the edge of a war he did not create, trying and failing to shield her from it. That is the kind of thing that breaks people open. It is also the kind of thing that creates a bond stronger than easy romance ever could. The looming return of Robin and Anna transforms Emma's emotional state from sadness into near obsession. Robin has always represented the part of Emma's life that still felt anchored, the proof that love could survive danger even if it was scarred by it. Anna, by contrast, represents the family's unhealed wound, the legend of strength that always carries a cost. If both women return to Port Charles while Sidwell and Cullum's crimes are still reverberating through the city, Emma will be forced to stand in the center of a reckoning she is not ready for. She will have to confront what was done to Anna, what was hidden from Robin, and what these powerful, damaged women have passed down to her without meaning to. The shock is not simply that they are returning. The shock is what their return threatens to awaken. Emma has been trying to live forward, to build something new with Gio, to imagine a future that is hers, but family history is pulling at her from behind like a tide. The more Anna's suffering comes into focus, the more Emma feels herself slipping into a version of love defined by vigilance, sacrifice, and fear. That is the real tragedy of the date. It is not only ruined by outside chaos. It becomes the moment Emma realizes she may never again be able to pretend she is standing outside her family's legacy of danger. Port Charles itself becomes a character in this collapse, because the city has a way of turning emotional fractures into public catastrophes. Sidwell's violence is not simply criminal, it is theatrical. He understands how fear spreads, how one threat can poison 10 relationships, how the rumor of danger can be as effective as danger itself. Cullum's role in the growing unrest adds another layer of instability, because his crimes have already convinced too many people that no boundary will be respected, no innocent left untouched if leverage can be gained. Under that pressure, Emma and Gio's date becomes symbolic of something larger. Their youth, their hope, their attempt at something clean and uncomplicated are crushed beneath the weight of older men's brutality. That contrast gives the entire evening a bitter emotional force. It is not just a romantic disappointment. It is a reminder that in Port Charles, the young are constantly forced to pay for the corruption of the powerful. By the time the night truly falls apart, both Emma and Gio are changed by it. Gio is left with the raw shame of someone who knows he failed at the exact moment he most wanted to be enough. He feels the need to apologize not because he thinks Emma is cruel or unforgiving, but because he cannot bear the look in her eyes when fear briefly overcomes her. He wants to erase that look. He wants to become the kind of man who can stand between Emma and every form of danger in this city. But the night teaches him that wanting that role and being prepared for it are not the same thing. His apology, when it comes later, carries the emotional weight of a vow forming in real time. He is no longer apologizing only for a ruined evening. He is apologizing for not yet being strong enough to protect what he has come to value. Emma's response matters even more. She does not meet his guilt with blame, because she knows blame is too easy and too shallow for what is really happening. Instead, she responds with the kind of softness that alters the shape of a relationship forever. Her grace is not passive. It comes from knowing what crisis does to people. It comes from seeing that Gio is already punishing himself more harshly than she ever could. That is why her compassion lands so deeply. It gives him not absolution, exactly, but permission to stay close. And that may be the most dangerous emotional development of all, because disaster does not drive them apart. It draws them closer. The failed date becomes a point of intimacy, a shared wound, a private memory born not from joy, but from surviving the same shock together. In another town, it might have ended the possibility of romance. In Port Charles, it becomes the thing that makes it real. Still, the tenderness of that connection cannot erase the larger dread closing in. If Robin returns, she will not come back to a calm city or a stable daughter. She will return to a Port Charles reshaped by fear, to Emma already emotionally entangled with someone being pulled toward conflict, and to Anna's pain waiting like an open fracture at the center of the family. Anna's own return would be even more explosive, because whatever was done to her will not remain contained. Trauma never does. It spills into homes, into relationships, into the language people use when they try and fail to say they are fine. Emma may think she is prepared to face Anna again, but nothing can prepare a granddaughter for seeing a legend diminished by cruelty, manipulated by enemies, or haunted by things she cannot yet explain. That anticipated reunion becomes another invisible force sitting at the table during Emma and Gio's ruined evening. Even before Anna physically returns, her suffering has already arrived. And then there is the darkest possibility of all, that the disaster of the date is only the first warning. Sidwell and Cullum do not create chaos randomly. They weaponize emotional fault lines. If Emma is frightened, if Gio is vulnerable, if Robin and Anna are about to re-enter the center of the canvas, then the stage is already set for a larger emotional siege. Emma's terror that history is repeating itself may not be paranoia, it may be instinct. Gio's sense that he is being drawn into a war may not be melodrama. It may be the truth arriving earlier than he wanted. When Port Charles begins to tremble like this, the tremor rarely stops with one broken evening. It becomes blackmail, disappearance, betrayal, sacrifice. It becomes the kind of chain reaction that destroys certainty first and safety second. That is why the emotional aftermath of the date feels more important than the event itself. Emma walks away from the night no longer able to separate romance from dread. Gio walks away, understanding that love in Port Charles demands courage long before it offers reward. Both of them are standing on the threshold of change, and the change is not gentle. Emma may soon have to choose between following the pull of family trauma or fighting for a future that does not revolve around crisis. Gio may have to decide whether he is willing to risk himself fully for Emma once the danger becomes unmistakably real. Robin's return could comfort Emma or shatter her fragile control. Anna's return could restore hope or confirm every nightmare Emma has carried in silence. Sidwell and Cullum, meanwhile, continue to function like a gathering storm, turning every personal moment into potential fallout. In the end, the date is a disaster not because it fails, but because it tells the truth too early. It reveals that Emma and Gio are no longer standing at the edge of a sweet young romance untouched by the ugliness around them. They are already inside the machinery of a darker story. Emma's heart is being pulled in two directions, toward the quiet future she wants and toward the inherited fear she cannot outrun. Gio is being forced to grow up in real time, to understand that loving someone like Emma means standing in the blast radius of old enemies and unfinished crimes. The return of Robin and Anna promises comfort on the surface, but beneath that promise is the threat of revelation, grief, and the reopening of wounds Port Charles never truly allows to heal. And with Sidwell and Cullum's crimes still reshaping the city, what happened on one ruined night may soon look less like an accident and more like the first fracture before everything breaks.